Where the world wants to move to. For the US and Canada, it's actually Japan, which I knew this country would be up there, but not number 1. I'm currently in the Netherlands right now, and when I Google how to move to, the first autofill result is the US from Europe, but Japan is also there in 3rd. Japan, on the other hand, wants to move to the UK. Really? The United Kingdom? I know the Japanese really like to take vacations in Brazil, but maybe they just don't want to live there. As for Brazil, they want to go to Portugal. Completely unsurprising, they speak Portuguese. Least shocking thing on this map. As well as the former Portuguese colony in Africa, Mozambique. They also want to go to Portugal. Portugal wants to go to the Netherlands, so it all comes full circle. Almost all of the Spanish-speaking part of Latin America wants to move to Spain. Not entirely, though. I mean, there are some countries that are just like no data. And then there is one pretty big outlier. So I guess Mexico don't like the US anymore. I think they're pretty tired of us by now. They're just gonna try to leapfrog over us and go to Canada. And actually, multiple islands in the Caribbean also want to move to Canada. You'd think it'd be a little cold for them up there. Most of the British colonies in Africa as well want to go to Canada. They don't even want to go to the UK, so this makes the Japanese choice still a little bit stranger. The Spanish-speaking parts of America want to move to Spain, but Spain, meanwhile, just wants to move to France. France wants to move to Canada. Okay, wait, Canada is just really popular, I guess. I mean, they're all over the place. I actually could have predicted that Sweden's #1 place to move to would be Spain. According to the language teaching app Duolingo, they really like studying Spanish. As for the rest of Europe, you pretty much want to move to either Germany or Switzerland. Actually, if you're in Ukraine, you want to go to Poland. If you're in Poland, you want to go to Germany. And if you're in Germany, you want to go to Switzerland. And you want to maybe go back to Germany once you get there. Pretty random. Israel's top spot is Australia. That's the first time that country's made this list. While the UAE wants to go to South Korea. Most of Southeast Asia want to go to Japan too, except if you're from South Asia, they want to go to Canada. Okay, this might be the biggest twist of them all, though. I really like reviewing these maps because there are some parts of the world where it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then other parts you're just like, what? But here's a map that might explain some of the unexplainable motives behind some of these countries. Which country has the most attractive people according to Europe? I've seen many maps like this with slight differences, but it's funny to see the countries that are always coming around on top. For this one, it looks like it's entirely Italy, at least at this portion of the continent. I've never seen one of these maps so one-sided. Although if you're from this portion of Europe, you think it's Spain. Could this just have to do with like a proximity effect? Like some of these countries are closer to Italy, there's a higher chance they might have gone to Italy, whereas these countries are closer to Spain, maybe they went to Spain. Like the random outliers though, Turkey with Russia, again, maybe a proximity thing. Switzerland with France. And as for Iberia, obviously these choices are not close to these countries. There's an obvious language connection they have here. I have seen Italy choose Sweden in a few of these types of maps. That seems to be always their top choice. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced this is just coming down to like the countries you're more likely to travel to. Although I can finally give my take on this since I've finally gone to a lot of these places. For me personally, like Spain is up there, but I think #1 was France. Although I haven't gone to Italy yet, so maybe I'll have to revise my choices. These are the most Latino cities in every US state. Now, since we're using the word Latino, are we including Spanish, Portuguese, and French? So obviously the places that border Mexico are gonna have way higher rates. The #1 on this map is actually East LA at 97%. That is a crazy number. Although this city in Florida, very close to that at 96%. The very southern tip of Texas has 95%. Then there's Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. I actually thought their numbers would be a little bit higher. Like these are the top cities with the most Latino population, and it's just barely 60%. 53% in Colorado. Then there's these white states like Wyoming, where there's no cities with over 65,000 residents. Are you serious? No, this cannot be. We don't need another reason to meme Wyoming. Okay, it might be Cheyenne just right at 65,000, but that's still insane. I literally feel like a broken record talking about how Wyoming only has less than 500,000 people living in it. But for some reason, I still always assumed that there was like a cluster of at least 100,000 people somewhere, just like in the corner. So they don't even have a city that's like 1/5 of their own population. Versus take Chicago, Illinois, for example. 9 million people live in that metropolitan and only 12 million in the entire state in general. So there's a 75% chance that if you live in Illinois, you live in this small corner. But I guess the residents of Wyoming, or at least if that's what they want us to believe, are pretty spread out. They're just kind of all over the place right here. Okay, so anyways, that wasn't even what we're supposed to be talking about here. Back to Latinos in US states. West Virginia is also another state though that doesn't have 65,000 residents. Look at Union City, New Jersey at 77%. That's the most out here in the East Coast. The Deep South and these flat states up here, definitely among the lowest. Wow, North Dakota, their highest city is only at 3%. There's more in Anchorage, Alaska, and Honolulu. The status of school uniforms throughout the world. In the US and Canada, US uniforms are uncommon. Although I went to a school with uniforms uniform. That's strange. But this is just saying it's not mandated by the government. The red countries have uniforms mandated by their government. Well, except for Guatemala, I don't know how they avoided all the red that they were surrounded by. Yellow still means it is commonplace though. So it's pretty much common throughout the West unless you are the US or Canada. Also, it's uncommon in most European countries. There's only one place in the world where the government has outlawed uniforms, and that's Finland. If I was 10 years old right now, I'd be telling my mom we need to move to Finland. It's strange because I've heard the positives to mandating uniforms, but what is the negatives? I don't even know. Why is it bad? Oh, it's a personal freedom thing. Freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Oh, all about those liberties. Man, Finland just sounded better and better. I mean, I don't have a dog in the race anymore. I'm not going to school, but I just remember how much I despised this as a kid. Pretty much everywhere else, it's either mandated by the government or it's very common to wear uniforms. This is seeming more and more like an uphill battle for these blue and purple places. I think they're gonna lose this war. US adults consume more news on Facebook than any other social media platform. So the blue bars are just showing the amount of people that actually use the site, but the yellow is showing how much use it for news. And right now, clearly Facebook is #1. But YouTube is not too far behind. I personally get my news from Twitter, which I realize is a horrible idea, but I don't really have any other alternatives. I guess Twitter and YouTube. Literally, no one gets their news from Twitch. Interesting that TikTok even has Reddit beat in terms of news. And then Instagram technically has way more users than Twitter, but yeah, it's not really a news sort of app. So roughly a third of US adults, or exactly 31%, say they regularly get news from Facebook. Oh man. I can see why that statement alone is a little scary. Remember when everyone just got their news from the newspaper? Android versus iOS, or which mobile operating system is popular in Europe. Is this not just also a map showing which parts of Europe like iPhones? How many people have like an Android device that's running iOS? I know they're out there. I don't know the percentages. It really just comes down to Ireland, the UK, and the Nordic countries, minus Finland. They really enjoy their iOS. I've seen maps like this before. Doesn't it come down to like GDP almost per capita? iPhones are like so expensive. Albania is a random outlier, and then we have most of these smaller city-states and Switzerland of Europe. I guess the Pope in the Vatican City has both Android and an iPhone. It's really living it up. And Kosovo don't even use smartphones. Here is where Venezuelans have migrated to. The reason they're leaving is because of probably a lot of reasons, but hyperinflation definitely not helping. These are crafts made of the Venezuelan currency because I guess it's worthless. In 2014, their inflation rate was 69%. In 2015, it was 181%. It became 800% in 2016, 4,000% in 2017, and then 1.7 million% by 2018. It's like exponential. So the top spot for Venezuelan population is, unsurprisingly, Colombia. It is right next to Colombia, and they are far ahead of the second place country of Peru. Colombia has got about 2.5 million Venezuelans. The US is in third, but that was only at about 500,000. We have Ecuador, Chile, Spain, Brazil, and then it drops off pretty significantly after Brazil. Man, if I had to go somewhere, I would want to go to Aruba, like just a beautiful tropical Caribbean island. How in the world is Guyana not way higher on the list? Colombia had big numbers, Brazil had big numbers, but not this neighboring country? I'm sure there's explanations, but I'm just still surprised it's not higher. It's not even in the top 10 here. Top 10 world university rankings as of 2022 and 2023. These things are always just randomly changing, and for some reason, I just don't I think there's some sketchy things going on underneath the surface. Like, these people are definitely getting paid to make these lists. Or does this have some sort of data behind it? This says scores. Harvard is #1 with a perfect 100, or is that 99%? I always thought MIT was ahead of Harvard, but they're second, and we have Stanford in third. We have 2 universities from the UK, Cambridge and Oxford, and then the rest led out by the US, Princeton, University of Chicago. Actually, I haven't heard of that. There's Penn and Columbia. I like how there was a label for like China, Switzerland, France, Canada, but they didn't really need that label here, at least here. Oh, but they did need them for the top 10 education rank, the employability rank. Here's when it gets a little bit more debatable. Research rank. What does that mean? I guess you can put actual numbers to how employable people are after they graduate, but what does this education rank really mean here? So if you go to Harvard, according to this, there's a very high chance you're probably going to get a job. Some job, any job. You could be working at a Walmart. We actually have 2 schools from France. There's the China European International Business School, which is actually a Chinese school, but I guess it specializes in European style business. Didn't realize France had so many good universities, or at least universities that will definitely get you a job afterwards. There's 4. So I'm guessing research is just like how many, you know, I don't know, researches they're doing. I don't know, Harvard's #1 again, and then 2 is Stanford. Then we have a Canadian school, University of Toronto, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Cambridge. Gonna try really hard to not talk about my love-hate relationship with higher education. I feel like I've just done that too much. Sometimes it just feels fishy. And big thanks to Why Am I Doing This? $20 is a lot, Drew.
aPhatNarwhal,
Barnsky W,
Drew's Argentinian Grandpa,
Chris3773,
DannyThyGamer,
GoodOldRyah,
istoledrewspetdog,
Jakov, Bruney,
LuxembourgLover,
nationsatrisk,
Bjorkman,
ortin5610,
Phresh Animations,
RyeThePie,
the
Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth,
Mexican
Twickenhamster,
Viotic,
ZaneyBoi,